So I have a question for you. When we were attending church, how much of your church looked like you?
Leave it in the comment section below.
Yeah, we want to see what you got to say about that. According to the Pew Research Center in 2018, 8 out of 10 congregations were comprised 80% of a single ethnic group. That's what we're talking about today. Social injustice and how it interacts, how it impacts us spiritually and mentally.
Welcome to Empowering Your Thoughts, an outreach ministry of Christ International Church. On this program, we deal with mental health issues and how they intersect with our faith. Please comment, like, subscribe, and share this program with a friend. And your hosts for today's show and mental health advocates, Tabitha Perez, Valerie Taylor, and Nicole McKenzie.
So, ladies, there was this one case that just overtook social media back in May that actually originated in February. There was a young man who was jogging through a neighborhood. He was trailed, we now know, for 4 minutes by men who were armed, and it resulted in the ending of his life. His birthday was May 8th, and social justice activist Shaun King encouraged everyone to go out and walk 2.3 miles in honor of Ahmaud Arbery. And, you know, myself, I went out with one of my friends, and also a former pastor, Richard Dempsey, from Florida, also took up this challenge. And he did as Shaun King encouraged, and he jogged 2.3 miles. But he also did a little something extra. He did so running through his neighborhood with a TV. So he's carrying the TV and he's running. There was not an I batted. There was not a call to the police. There was no concerns about suspicious behavior.
Wow.
Do I need to say what he looked like? He did not look like any of us.
Yeah.
So this is why our episode today, our show today, is just so important, because we have people who are losing their lives and oftentimes not receiving the justice that they are worthy of.
Right.
And when it comes, sorry, Tab.
No, you're fine.
When it comes to that, Nicole, I think it's interesting that a white Caucasian pastor did this challenge, right?
Yep.
I think oftentimes, especially in situations like this, I feel like I'm drawn to the church's response, right? How are our leaders, our pastors responding, our ministers? How about just the people, the body of Christ? You know, how are we responding to this? And I feel like there is a huge divide in a sense. You know, we have people who are experiencing this, or who know people who are experiencing this, or just feel like, you know, they've experienced this personally. You have people who understand, and then you have people who don't understand, don't get it, don't want to get it, you know,
Right.
and
No interest in getting it.
you truly see the privilege, you know, when it comes to that in the church. And so if we are to be one body of Christ, one, not multiple, but one, and we cannot be there for our brothers and sisters if we can't mourn with them or seek justice for them, then how is our body not fractured?
Right. Not only just the seeking justice. Yes, seeking justice, that I think that's the most important portion. But stepping outside of the privilege of not being touched with it. So stepping outside of not having to think about it, to begin to wrestle with these thoughts and begin to wrestle and put yourself truly not in a sympathetic, to say I feel sorry for you, but in an empathetic way. What if I had to worry about my son every time they left the house? How would that feel for me? Would that then raise my voice to speak against this? Would that then raise the righteous indignation, what we call righteous indignation within me, to call for justice? Would that raise the anger in me to truly do something about this? And so using that empathy to put ourselves in the shoes of those who are truly going through this, and not take the privilege of saying nothing. Because I think that's so important. To say nothing is to be complicit. To say nothing when there's I believe Martin Luther King said there's social justice, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. To say nothing is not, you're not going to, put the gavel in on anyone's judgment to say nothing. But what you are doing is, what you're saying is,
you're helping the oppressor.
You're helping the oppressor, because the oppressed don't have loud enough voice. They don't have the power. That's the hierarchy of social injustice, is that the person at the bottom is stepped on because they don't have the power.
Right.
Those in power, those who have the influence, those who have the ability to speak out and be heard. I think it's really important to not just rest back and say, this doesn't have to do with me, I think I'm going to be quiet about it. Use your social media.
It's being someone who has broken an ankle. When I broke my ankle, my entire body was impacted. So just to speak to your points, Tabitha and Val, we are, as a church, called to be the body of Christ.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You cannot have a splinter in your foot and then not impact and involve the remainder of your body. Your whole body is working towards getting that splinter out your foot. I think that is so interesting that I was on a fast a few years ago, and I never saw what I'm about to share today, which is the fasting chapter, Isaiah 58, and in the Message version of it. And it talks about the type of fast God is calling for, and why when Israel was fasting, they weren't getting results. And in verse 6, he says, no, this is the type of fast I want. This is what is important to God. And if you look at, this is what's on his heart. Free those who are wrongly imprisoned, lighten the burdens of those who work for you. So equal pay, fair wages, let the oppressed go free, removing the chains that bind people, share your food with the hungry. How many times have we heard news stories about people who have been in prison for feeding the hungry? And also give shelter to the homeless. Give clothes to those who need them, and do not hide from relatives who need your help. Then your salvation will come like the dawn. The first things that was on God's heart was free those wrongly imprisoned. So social justice is at the forefront of God's heart. Mm-hmm. Where is it on yours? We are called to be Christ-like and to be followers of God. Mm-hmm. Does these things, which is what God has written, is important to him, are they important to us as well? Or do we just say, blaming the victim? Because there's another part that talks about blaming the victim. Yeah. Oh, well, he should have been wearing a hoodie and then he wouldn't have gotten hurt. Yeah. Or if he just, did what the officer said, he wouldn't got shot.
Right.
So often it's easy for us to sit back and say, okay, well, I'm not the right foot, so I'm not going to be concerned. That makes no sense, even in the literal sense. And we're called to be the body of Christ.
But
Okay, I just wanted to hit real quick on the emotional part. I wore my hoodie intentionally because this has been this item of clothing has been such a controversy. And there has been, shootings and people who lost their life over their choice to wear this hoodie. And I'm very intentional. If you see, it's bright yellow, so there's no confusing it with maybe so there was a rash of shootings a few years back, like a summer where it was like back to back, and it's like, oh my gosh. And it was something I saw on social media that really resonated with me, and it was like a little comedy bit that was saying, I just want to call in black. The stress of the weight of my skin, I have never, in all of my years, with the exception of the last 12, I have not felt the weight of the color of my skin ever before, where it is demonized, it's criminalized, it is, given everything except the benefit of the doubt. And it weighs, it's like, I'm just so tired. I am very intentional. Bright yellow, cannot confuse it with anything else. So there is definitely, as a Christian, I would love to see us as a body be concerned about the other parts of the body. You know, we may not be the knee, but can we be concerned about, you know, the knee of the body? And also taking care and then understanding that for the needs that's going through at this time, you know, it does impact us. There's a mental and a spiritual toll.
I think it's really important that what you said, what you're really hitting on the mental and emotional toll of it. Because I think sometimes people can't empathize if they don't understand the emotion, the underlying emotion. So let me explain. Fear. Number one, leaving out of the house, having to be mindful of the color of the face mask, having to be mindful of the clothes that we wear, having to be mindful of even sometimes the fashion of hair, having to be mindful at the workplace, especially the fashion of hair, if it looks unkempt because it's curly, if it looks, you know, it's, so the first of all, it's fear. Second of all, it's lack of justice for when Black bodies and brown bodies are gunned down in the streets, to whether they were doing criminally or not. Justice happens in the courtroom, not on the street.
That's
and
right.
So I think so it starts with fear of just being in this body. And then of course we have the loss that comes with losing one that we love. But then you lose that loved one, and then you lose justice, and it kind of bears down on your hope. So if you're someone who, and this is why, for those of us who love our former president, his campaign of hope is so important. It was so important because you lose hope after seeing so many things happen and no justice being taken. So for those of you in the body of Christ and who want to latch onto those others who are in the body of Christ who are experiencing this, understand fear and then lack of justice are the two most important things you can empathize with. Put yourself in our shoes. Put yourself in the shoes of those who actually live in the inner city, who cannot afford to go to the next level, who can't afford to get to the suburbs, who would be an outsider even in the suburbs. Empathize with them and be able to feel those feelings so that we don't feel like an outsider as much when we are, especially in our religious gatherings, when we're together. It doesn't have to be overt, but be willing to feel the things that we feel, you know.
Tabitha, that is so important. So I would say even real for me. I remember a few summers ago, I was listening to the book Rest in Power, which was written by Trayvon Martin's parents. And I was at work, so I was listening to it as I was driving, and I wanted to cry so many times, and I wasn't able to because, you know, I'm counseling. It wouldn't be a good look to show up tear face and streak face and, you know, trying to counsel someone. So I kind of sat and just did something unhealthy. I sat on my emotions and did not express them until the Sunday night when I finished it. And I just cried. I just hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Because yes, there was a lack of love because their baby was no longer there. And then the lack of justice. And then the part that just hit me even harder as a Christian was these people throughout that process. It was one that was bathed in prayer. They were appealing to the God of justice. And it seems that he didn't respond. He didn't answer. He didn't answer their prayers. And as a person of color who is also a person of faith, that is an indictment that sometimes if we are true with ourselves, we would say, God, you are not, you don't hear us. Do not our blood cry out like Abel's blood did? Do our blood not reach heaven? Because our blood has been spilled for 401 years since we first got to this continent.
That's really powerful, Nicole, and really intense. And I want to share in a sense quickly that, you know, for me, life was very different. I'm married now to a Black man and I have a Black son. And so the awareness and the empathy that I've gained through all of this has really helped me to be a better person, a better follower of Christ. really, to be able to help and advocate and speak for and speak against oppression or injustice against my brothers and sisters. You know, and if God created us all, right, and Jesus died for all of us, that means that no one is exclusive. It means that no one is superior to the next. It means that God created all of us equally. And that love shows in so many ways. And so if we are to love our neighbor as ourselves, we are to love them all. We are to rejoice with them. We are to grieve with them. We are to seek justice for them. If our God created us in our image, that means if he is a God of justice, we are people of justice.
Right. That's a good point.
And there is no ands, ifs, or buts about that. We have to be educated, concerned, loving, and empathetic to everyone and those who go through these situations and speak against that social injustice.
Thank you again, guys, for tuning in to this episode of Empowering Your Thoughts. If this topic hit home at all for you, please share it with someone who you think would love to hear it, number one. Someone who may not want to hear it, number two.
But need to.
Who needs to hear it, number three.
Right.
Share this with at least 3 people. Be sure to add your comments in the bottom, subscribe, and hit that love button as often as you'd like. Thank you guys again.